Welcome back to Real Tight TV, everyone. Tonight we're going to be talking about tuna baits, specifically for blackfin tuna, skipjack, yellowfin tuna, which are the primary species we have here on the north coast in Jamaica. We do occasionally get big eye, which is very rare, very, very rare, but you know, a local fisherman might catch one every now and again, or maybe a charter boat, but very, very rare to find them. And when we do find them, it's once in maybe 10 years, somebody might come in with one bigger than 20 pounds. So we're just gonna discuss some of the baits we use, the tactics, what we would apply to when, and based on the size of the fish that we're seeing as well. So let's talk tuna. All right, so guys, before I even get into the lures that we use, I'm gonna show you some of the teasers that we actually use. The teasers that I'm gonna show you first are usually the ones that we'll pull out when we're looking for the big yellowfin tuna. I'm gonna start off with my Squid Nation daisy chain. Well, this is the Squid Nation flippy floppy thing. Now it has 4 sets of squids on it, and it really flops around, gives a whole lot of commotion. Now this is where you would connect to your main line, and then on this side there's a bird which skips on the back, and then you'd connect your lure to this. So basically you're creating a lot of excitement on the surface and a lot of splashing around. Tuna tend to feed on squid, so something that looks as realistic as this color that I have it in is called natural. So again, very good. It does work for billfish as well, so marlin do come up on this teaser, but usually you always have a bait trailing at the back, and that's normally what triggers the strike. That one little straggler at the back of the school. All right, so the next one I'm gonna get at is the daisy chains. So again, I apply them for both billfish and for tuna, but anything that creates a lot of commotion on the water, that looks like multiple schools of squid or anything like that, is always something great to have. Again, this is by Squid Nation. This one has 2, 4, 5 squids on it. Same idea. At the front here, you have your loop that connects to your main line, that goes to your rod or your hand line if you're using a big hand line. And then on the back end here, we have a swivel, a snap swivel, and this connects to whatever lure you decide to put on the end of it. And it actually works very well. I've had billfish come up on it a little more than tuna. I have another one here in purple, just to have some variety in your spread. It's good to have different colors every now and again, because sometimes the fish will be attracted to one versus the other. Sometimes the conditions might require a darker color so the fish can see it a little better from underneath. Sometimes the brighter colors show up, especially when it's nice and sunny. These might work better. And before I even go any further, birds. Again, same idea. You have something that skips on the surface of the water, it creates a lot of commotion. This end connects to your main line, and this end connects to your lure that will be trailing behind it. Now, these I believe were originally created for tuna fishing. I've had success with them with almost every species. The only species of fish that I see that tends to shy away from, especially the bigger birds, might be dolphin, mahi-mahi. They sometimes shy away from it, but for the most part, these things get hit by everything, by marlin, by tuna, everything. And that commotion that it skips on the top of the water with really gives you a lot of action, a lot of excitement, and especially on days when it's slick calm, you want that commotion, you know, to kind of bring those fish up, especially if they're deeper down, so that they can see something on the surface. They see some action, they see something to go after, not just a lure trailing by itself. So I have smaller birds, which I'll run off the outriggers, and the larger ones, I always have a big one on my center rigger, the furthest line from the boat, the sweeper, and or on the flat lines. And like I said, I'll run multiple birds on a day when it's flat calm. Might not use them so much when it's choppy, because sometimes they can dive under the waves while you're trolling, and you know, they just pop out the outrigger clips every minute. So I try not to use them when it's too choppy. Alright, so let's get to the lures. Alright, so I hope you guys can see this clearly. Trying to work with the lighting a little bit as best as I can. I'm gonna start with the most basic of basic. Now, let me put this over here. So these are what we refer to as Bonito feathers, or tuna baits. Now, in Jamaica, yes, we call them feather. Like most local fishermen, you will hear them saying feather. We just pick it up and say the same thing all the time, you know, Bonito feather, feather. Now, they're actually squid skirts. And the thing about these squid skirts is all of these are actually made by me. These are the way I like to make them, and they've actually been quite successful. If you check out my last video, all of the tuna that we caught were on these in an assortment of colors. I've caught everything on this bait, actually, from blackfin tuna to yellowfin tuna, wahoo, marlin, sailfish, dolphin. You know, there's everything that is in the ocean will bite these. So this is something that you will see every local fisherman have, and they'll have quite a number of them. I've taken out an assortment of them, but I have a ridiculous amount of them as well. I still have another bag there that has at least another 30 more of them, because you don't ever want to find a school of tuna and you run out of baits, especially if they're really biting. Sometimes you can lose 2, 3, 4 of these baits. And if you look at this bait, for example, it's quite chopped up, and you know, it's seen a few fish. Right? It's time to really retire this and change this skirt, but I'll get around to that soon. Now, I'm gonna show you how I start making this. Alright guys, so the whole lure that you see here actually starts with this piece of lead. So you can buy these at, Tony makes them down at Atoll Chin. You can purchase them, most of the Montego Bay fishermen purchase them from him. He makes it in 2 different sizes. He makes it in a smaller size as well. But this is the base of how it's made. So we actually buy the parts and fit them together to our liking with whatever colors we like. So you'll start with this, and we'll get other skirts and we'll cut them into pieces, and that's why you'll see so many different colors under some of these, is that we'll cut them into pieces. So this one has blue, orange, pink, all kinds of colors. We'll tie them onto here, onto the lead here, and then you buy a squid skirt in whatever colors you like or whatever you think the fish are biting on. So, and you slide it over on top of this, on top of the lead. So you pretty much hide the lead. So that's why you can't see it now. So what I do, I don't know if everybody else does this. I know quite a few people do it, but what we'll do is once we slide this, the squid skirt on top, we'll actually wrap it a couple times with a piece of fishing line. So that's just because from time to time when you hook up these tuna and they run, when you reel them up, sometimes this skirt will slide off of the lead and run up on the the line, and sometimes when you're trying to get a tuna off the hook and then trying to throw back out your bait to try and catch another fish quickly, you don't want to have to be pushing the skirt back down onto the lead and, you know, exposing everything else under here. So that's why we have this little wrap here. Like I said, I have them in an assortment of colors, different, you know, styles. Sometimes, most of the time, I'll use pink. This full white, as you can see, is really doing well. Blue and pink, blue and white with the pink inside. The other day I was doing very well on the yellowfin tuna. Were actually eating this bait, this specific color right here. You can see he's gotten a few scars on him. This one, oh, this was the one that we're getting the yellowfin tuna in. I think in my previous video we hooked a barracuda while we were fishing in the tuna. This is what he bit on. Luckily he didn't damage the leader. I use mono leader on mine. If you notice, other fishing channels or the local fishermen, they all use wire because sometimes, like in my last video, you'll hook a barracuda. Sometimes you'll hook a wahoo in there, and it's very rarely you'll get him if you have this monofilament line, because they'll just cut that off and you'll lose the bait, lose the fish, everything. I don't typically use these anywhere where I think there's going to be a toothy critter, but you know, I think that the hookup ratio is faster when you use mono versus wire. But everybody has their preference, and everybody makes their, at least all of the local guys make their tuna baits, you know, a little bit different. Some people will actually take this lead, and before they wrap anything out of it, they'll actually cut this down a little more to shape it to the size they want. Gives it a little action, swims a little different for them, works better for them, you know, to each his own. Some people don't even do all of this elaborate cutting up of skirts and tying up and all of that like I do, or like some of the local guys do. What they'll do is they'll literally just buy two of these squids, push one inside the other, and that's it. Sometimes they'll just buy it and use this alone, just the squid on top of the lead. And I mean, who am I to say that it doesn't work? It does work from time to time. I have just found that this way of doing stuff gives you a better hookup ratio. They just tend to go after it more. You get better action. Sometimes a little longer skirt, you know, this little tail action here sometimes will trigger a strike even when they're not biting. Yeah, so like I said, an assortment of colors. I have them in, you know, rainbow, black and white, you know, all kinds of tiger stripes here. And guys, let me tell you, they all work. Every single one of them here works. It's just, you know, one day you might go out there and this is the color the tuna are biting on, and they're not biting on any other color here. So usually I'll have two of each color that I make. Just one as a backup, just in case you lose one, but also in the case that you notice they're biting one color and they're really aggressive on that. From the last video, I had a lot of hookups on this one particularly. Now, this skirt, they no longer make this skirt. I've had this skirt for like 10 years. I don't know where I'm going to get it back, but I'm going to try my best. To see if I can find this top skirt again. It was called the Campbell River Dancer, but the local fishermen have different names for it. Some man will say the Dominica. Don't ask me where that come from, but yeah. Bad piece of bait that. Anyway, this is what we use locally. And like I said, it catches every pelagic you can think about that's out there. It will catch you 100-pound yellowfin, or it'll catch you a 5-pound bonito. You know, it's such a versatile bait. When I'm trolling in weed lines, I'll put out one or two of these because if there's smaller dolphin around, you'll hook up one or two of them on these lures just the same, which you might miss trolling bigger lures right through that weed line. All right, moving on. This is a cedar plug. Now guys, yes, it is a piece of wood with a lead and a hook inside of it. How could that possibly catch a fish? Well, let me tell you, I'm here to tell you that this is... I first heard of this when I had some friends that went to Cabo, and when they found the tuna, the guys on the boat started putting out these things. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And in less than a second, this thing took off. They got a hookup. Now, we bought some, started using them in Jamaica, and yes, they work. They catch skipjack tuna, blackfin tuna, yellowfin tuna, even the false albacore, the little tunny, the ugly one that they call Bonito in Florida. But yeah, this one. I've caught dolphin on it by accident, I guess, because he somehow took it. We're going into some birds and thought it was tuna. I put it out and I caught a dolphin on it. And I have a friend who caught a wahoo on it, trolling on the edge as well. So versatile bait. Sometimes people will take a little blowtorch and burn some black marks onto it, and they think it might give it a little more color. But so far, as a matter of fact, only the cedar plug in this natural wood color works for us down here. They have them in all kinds of different colors: orange, pink, blue, all kinds of funky colors. But only this natural wood color works for some reason. I don't know why. And all this thing does is it just darts up and down in the water like this, right below the surface, while you're trolling. And they go crazy over it. So this is another choice. It's not very expensive and you don't have to make it. It comes pre-rigged and it works fine. So if you are looking to get something into your tuna arsenal, this would be a good thing for you to have. I've had a few before and I've lost them. Those are stories for another time. Now, it's not all the time that you will find tuna that are biting, and there are days when the tuna bite everything. It doesn't matter if it's a bonito feather, a cedar plug, a bullet head. It doesn't matter if it's a marlin lure. They will literally crush anything that is out there when they're in that aggressive mode. Now, I personally, sometimes you'll find them and you'll go through them 4, 5, 6 times. They're feeding on the surface. You see them jumping out of the water, and there's nothing that you put out there that they will bite. Because we don't have any banks on the Montego Bay side of the north coast, there's nowhere where you can drift and chum for tuna. When you find the schools out there, they're moving so fast that there's no getting ahead of them. You get in front of them and you think that you're ahead of them. By the time you throw out a live bait and you hook one, if it's a yellowfin, that's if it's a yellowfin, it could just be bonito, the school is gone, half a mile from you. So, they move a lot, they move very fast, and sometimes they don't travel in any specific direction. Sometimes they start heading out to sea, then they'll come back in, then they'll go up, then they'll come down. There's really no telling, where these fish will go, because they're just running down the food and catching it any way possible. Unless you can see, large schools of bait and you can say, okay, this is where they're feeding and they're concentrating in one spot, there's really no, drifting or live baiting for them out on the deep. It's really just a waste of time, in my opinion. You can do it. I mean, it's sure fun if you want to use, light tackle, especially if it's smaller fish. But we just don't. These fish move so fast down here that it's a waste of time most of the time, thinking that you're gonna be able to, get ahead of the school, chum them up or anything like that. They're just not gonna stick around. Sometimes I'll pull these out the bullets because sometimes they'll trigger a strike. You might get a strike on, I'll put them out on the far outriggers, especially for the bigger fish that are finicky. You run it a little further back, the big yellowfins will come up and crush these on the far outriggers. These are Moy's bullets. This right here is actually a Wolfpack lure. It's one of those lures that they use up in North Carolina for bluefin tuna when they're trolling. It's a rubber squid right here, and then it has this skirt over it, so when it's running it kind of gives you this flash and color here, and then a rubber skirt. Like it's supposed to replicate a sand eel, something that they're used to eating up north. I bought it to try it as well down here. Tried it a few times. Did get a strike on it, did not hook up, and I haven't tried it back since. But then I haven't done much trolling in the big yellowfins with this to really say, whether I think it works or not. Another lure, which I consider an all-purpose lure because this catches everything that swims out there. Islander lures. You put a rig ballyhoo under this, and most of the time, you'll do very well in the tuna, in the big tuna. Most of the time. Sometimes, like I said, this is what they're going after, little tiny baits, because that's what they're out there feeding on. But, if they're really in that feeding frenzy, one of these with a rig ballyhoo, or even naked by itself like this, it will work. I've caught yellowfin tuna on that just like that. In a couple months ago, before I started doing videos, I was actually hooking up the yellowfin tuna on the Islander Expresses. That's what they were biting on, the larger Islander Expresses with no rig ballyhoo or anything, just the big Islander Express. I got them on pink and white, blue and white, and I think red and white. Those are the three colors that I got good strikes on and that I caught fish on. And I mean, a 30-pound yellowfin will swallow one of those lures because I literally had to get the hook out of his throat. So he swallowed the entire lure, which is roughly, maybe about this length, right? So they have no problem inhaling one of these lures. So yeah, so guys, like I said, you have the option of choosing whatever it is you like. By no means is this, this is the way to do it. I'm just giving you an idea of the stuff I do or the things that I try. I a lot of the times I'm very lucky. Like I said, I'm not saying that I know it all. There's always something else to learn. And if you talk to a lot of the local guys too, like I said, they might not like how I rig my Bonito baits, my Bonito feather. But they do it their own way, and they're very successful as well. These are the guys that go out there every day and they'll come back in with 70, 80 fish in a king fiber, a canoe. So I mean, like I said, this is my way of doing it. This is an idea if you want to get into this. And this is probably the most inexpensive set of lures that you can fix up for yourself and get going in the tuna. Especially if you're a young fisherman just starting out. Like I said, fishing equals zero financial sense because you spend a lot more money on a lot of these expensive things than you really should, when most of the time there's simple baits like this that really do the job that you came to do. So anyway guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.